Oopsie. Okie dokie, you think I'm live? Yes. Good morning, everybody. I think I'm live. I always say that. I think I'm live. Just got to work out all the little um, techie things. Make sure I can see my comments. I got that. Okay. Sorry, I'm a little bit late this morning. I slept in. Yeah, no excuse other than I slept in. I'm in a bit of a Christmas holiday mode still. Normally I get up quite early, but I decided to have a little bit of a sleep in. Christmas Day. I'm just going to turn this little thing off here. And I did this morning as well as yesterday morning. No more. As of tomorrow, up early again. Otherwise, I get very disorganized. So I'm just making sure I've got my little tech, see the comments and everything. Cool. Let me just make sure. Cool, got the comments. I always say this at the beginning. If for some reason you comment and I don't answer, it's because the comment hasn't come through. It should. I think I've sorted all of that out. But yeah, sometimes tech gets away from me a little bit. I'm going to work out what's... now what am I doing? I'm trying to... Where's my comments gone? Sorry, guys. Holy moly. What's this doing? I'm trying to get my comments back. Okay, got that. Got that. Okay. Now I've lost my comments. Let's just see if... No, we don't want to do that. Oh, man. Tech. Okay. Let me just... Sorry. Oh, now I've lost... Okay, we don't want to do that. Sorry, guys. I'm just sorting myself out here a little bit. Okay, I got that. Got it. Got it back. Sorry. Okay, so once again, good morning if you're in Australia or New Zealand or good evening or good afternoon wherever you are in the world. I hope you had a lovely Christmas and enjoyed your break. And it's still sort of at Christmas time, the week is sort of like a whole week of, at least, even if you're busy. Like, I mean, I have so many horses and animals that I can't take time off. But I still go into that sort of frame of, a little bit of holiday mode and it sort of goes for the week, doesn't it, until New Year's Eve, and then we're back into real life again. Anyway, that's how I sort of see it. So I hope everyone's had a lovely Christmas, and yeah, relax for the week. Let's see you in the new year, and let's hope it's a better new year than better 2022 than our 2021. Like, wow, what a year, hey? Big welcome to our new members. Lovely to have you in the group. I did a welcome post yesterday. So if you don't know, I do a weekly Q&A. Usually I do it on a Sunday, like Australian Eastern Daylight Time Sunday mornings. For the Christmas, I've changed it to this Tuesday. Generally it's on a Sunday, but I always do a weekly Q&A. If you have any questions you want to ask me, you can pop on live when I do the Q&A, or you can pop them in the comments below, or even any time throughout the week. Just pop a post. We'll pop them in the comments below when I put in a notice in the group, and I'll answer the question for you in the live. And there's always a recording straight afterwards, so you can go back and watch it at your own leisure. So I've got a question. I'm just going to go in here and find it, and my phone's just dinging away here. So I've got a question, and I look on my phone here if I can find it. Okay, here we go. So this is a question from Sue. Hey, Sue. So Sue's a lovely friend of mine. And she has 5 horses. We've got Off The Track Thoroughbreds, Standies, Little Candy, the mini pony. But Sue asks, I won't be able to make the live, so here is my question. It's regarding yarded horses and grass length. If said horses are getting between 2 to 3 biscuits of hay a day, a small hard feed, and half to 1 hour of grazing from 6 a.m., but the rest of the time are nibbling on short grass in the yard about 1 centimetre high. So that's only the really little grass. She actually sent me through some photos of it. Are they at risk of ulcers, or does the nibbling produce enough saliva to buffer the gut? Or do I have that incorrect? No, saliva does buffer the gut. Saliva is an acid buffer. So sometimes they will leave hay in feed bags, slow feeder, but not super slow, preferring to nibble. Don't want to feed more hay as they're already chunky, but really didn't think they were eating enough for gut health. And then I asked, so the half to 1 hour of grazing in the morning is on the long grass. And I've seen that grass. Oh, hey, Rebecca, I've got your question here as well. Cool. I'll come to that one. Okay, I'll come to your question in a moment. I'll just go to Sue's. Now, let me just see if Sue answered. I just wanted to see if... She hasn't answered. That's okay. So the grass is extremely short. Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but I'll show you. Okay. So if you can see the phone, you can see Sue's grass is extremely short. So, so you can see here, just showing you what, which is only very, very little pick. Like you definitely, probably your 1 centimeter length. So, that's not enough. So no, that's not enough to keep a healthy gut if you weren't providing hay. So I'll just go back to my question. Oops. So Sue asked, does nibbling produce enough saliva to buffer the gut? So the saliva is produced from the chewing. Okay, so the more so they need more of a fibrous long stem type of forage to create the chewing that then creates the saliva. So just nibbling on grass, short grass. I mean, long grass is better, but even long grass, because especially what we've got at the moment here in Australia, like down in New South Wales and Canberra and that, is such green grass. Even the short pick is really green, and it's mainly water. There's not much fiber in it at all. So they haven't got a lot of fiber to chew on, if any. Even the pick that you're going out, so that green pick that they're getting for half to 1 hour a day of grazing, isn't very fibrous. I mean, I'm having this problem with my horses myself with all the green lush grass. It's just, there's so much water in it that it's not giving them the fiber that they need. So no, it's not adequate for them to just have that nibble throughout the day because it's not going to create the chewing that they need. So it's the chewing that creates the saliva. So if they're just nibbling on a short bit of grass, they don't have to grind that up. It's also mainly like there's so much water content in your green lush grass, so it's not going to it's basically going to disintegrate as soon as it gets to the stomach. It's not creating that good sort of fibrous mat that sits in the stomach that they need to protect the stomach walls from the acid, because horses continually have acid producing in their digestive system in their stomach. So if you can imagine, the green grass is just it's soft, it's not fibrous, it hasn't got a good fiber content. It's much better, even if you get the dry weather, the drought. So we've got that really brown sort of, our brown grass has more fiber. It's dry, it's more fibrous. But the green grass is so much water content in it. So no, it doesn't do the job. The only thing that you can do, I mean, having that pick where they can go out and graze on the long green grass. I mean, I've got paddocks here of just long green grass everywhere, but I bring them in. One, not only is it, I notice that they're on the long green grass, but you can see they're still craving that dry, fibrous type of content. And quite often you'll see horses that are continually picking on green grass, this lush green grass, besides the fact that it's quite often high, the starch and sugar content is really high. You'll notice if there's wood posts and that around, they want to go and eat the wood because they're craving that fibrous type of material in their stomach, which is natural for them. So horses are designed to naturally graze on native pasture and dry native pasture, like your sort of dirt, and your dry browny type of grasses, not this green lush grass that we have. For me, this property used to be cattle and sheep production, so you can imagine it's all fertilized. It's got my phalaris and the ryegrass and everything, and it's a bit of a nightmare, really. When I first came here, it was dry, so having that lovely dry grass, even though I still had to be aware of the sugar content in that, is much better than having all this lush green grass. So it doesn't give them the fiber that they need. So you need to provide them with some type of hay. Look, if they want to, you need to be able to, while they're in the yards of a daytime, have your fibrous hay. So your I know you don't want the oaten hay or anything like that because of laminitis and the high sugar content. But your Rhodes hay, your teff hay, or I know you can soak your lucerne hay. Get not the leafy lucerne, but your stalky sort of lucerne. I know it's a pain in the butt, but yeah, they always need to have access to some type of fibrous hay, and also to the lucerne. If you're also picking on green grass, your lucerne hay for the calcium content, as long as you don't have any issues with feeding your horse lucerne hay. Some horses don't handle lucerne hay very well, but just having it's like if you've got a horse out on green pick 24/7, it's going to create, I find, it can create, like I say, it's going to, but it can create a lot of issues with the wet weather we have here in Australia. They're not getting the fiber content that they need, and you need to be able to either bring them in off the pasture for a good amount of time where they get that ability to be able to chew a really good fibrous hay, or have access to it so they can go for the green pick and then come back when they need to fill their gut up with the fiber hay. So I hope that makes sense, and especially the 1 centimetre. I mean, they're just picking at it. And it's like us eating lollies. They're getting that short little, because that 1 centimetre hay is going to be still very sweet. It's the fresh growth coming up. It's green. It's going to be very sweet. So that it's just like us eating a lolly. And it's not creating, they don't have to masticate it really well. There's no mastication at all really with that little bit of green pick, is there? So no, the green pick is not going to be sufficient for the healthy gut, because it's not providing that long stem forage. You can imagine the long stem forage, the coarsey stuff goes into their stomach, and what you're wanting to create is sort of like a full stomach all the time in horses. Unlike humans, we don't want a full stomach all the time because it's uncomfortable. But a horse really needs like a 3/4 stomach full of fiber, hay, or your very high fiber type of forage to protect the stomach lining from the acid splash up. They're always designed, horses are always designed to continually basically have food go through their system, and not your grains or your short grain grass, but high fiber type of forage to go through their system. So yeah, having it still, even if they're in those yards and they've got that green pick, you do need to have access, allow them to have access to your stalky, your sort of fiber type of hay. You can even feed, I know, now this is on Feed XL. I'm not sure, I have done it in the past, but you can feed a really nice, you can add into your hay content straw, but a nice clean straw. You would have to look at this, and this is on Feed XL. Feed Excel, it's in my online course. I do a little tutorial on the Feed Excel calculator and that. It's fantastic. Nerida Richards is a well-known equine nutritionist. She's amazing. She has some articles on adding some straw into your feed for that fiber content, and also too, because it's very low calorie, it's got very little calorie, and it's just sort of all this type of fiber. You don't want to give too much because it's an undigestible type of fiber. I don't want to speak too much on it because I don't know the full details. I'd have to go back and read the information in the articles. And I think straw too, as long as you get, because the straw is the stem of the, your grains and things like that. It's fairly low in sugars. You wouldn't want to feed it to a laminitic horse or a horse with some type of metabolic problem. But yeah, there is, I'll go back and find that article and look more into it, because it does provide some fiber, and you can mix it in with the other types of hay to also give them a variety. But to go back to the question, just having them on that short little bit of green pick, or even if it was, a bit of long green pick, you sort of, that much, or even long of your green grass, just having them on 24/7 is it quite often is going to cause problems. Unless it's dry and fibrous, because it's such a high water content, so it's not giving them the fiber that they need in their gut, and it's digested really quickly, the very high green lush type of grass. So I hope that makes sense, Sue. Let me know. I know you're going to watch this replay, so let me know if that helps at all, and reach out to me. Okay, so if you're popping on and you have a question, pop it in the comments. I'm going to have a sip of my coffee here. I'm a coffee head. I love my coffee. And I've got all my little dogs around me. Well, normally mine's Poppy sitting on the lounge. Poppy's sitting out in the sun. She's not even barking at the alpacas out there. It's nice and sunny here today, which is lovely. Okay. Hey, Rebecca, I've got your question here. So, my OTTB has a new behaviour where he runs around the paddock like a wally. Yeah, they do that. As I'm walking over with his dinner. Yeah. So he's anticipating his dinner. He also charges towards me and has kicked out a couple of times. Yeah, he has 24/7 access to grass and a morning feed. Is this a common thing, and how can I get him out of this? It is a common thing. So a couple of things are happening, and it is a common thing with off the track thoroughbreds and racehorses. I've worked in racing stables for so many years, and seriously, sometimes when you go to take the hay in or their feed in, racehorses, they're like going into a lion pit. Some are beautiful and they don't worry, but they anticipate their feed quite often, if not nearly always often. They don't have enough fiber, which was what I was talking about just before answering Sue's question, is they don't have enough fiber in racing stables to continually nibble on and go through their gut. So they're anticipating their feed. They also, being stabled, they can't, because they're in a herd situation, they've got their own space. They can protect their feed. They can push other horses out of the way, and they don't sort of, their boundaries aren't, threatened. So they can sort of get their own little healthy space in a natural herd situation. So you see, I've got my team of horses who are in a herd situation. If I go out and feed throw the hay out while I've got all my herd of, while the horses are there, it's just like, a death sentence. So I tend to either put all my hay out and then allow the herd to come into the small paddock in their yard, like the big sort of dry lot that I have. Put them in the yard and then go and take their feed, or hang their hay nets up and then walk them in. So it is a bit of a common thing. Once again, a couple of the reasons for that, racehorses do often anticipate their feed. They're waiting quite a while before they get their feed. That because they're also in a stabled environment, and they've got horses next to them that they may not get on with, they feel threatened, that when their feed is being brought in, you know, the other horse is there, they can't push them away because they're basically locked in that small little stable area. So they get a little bit aggressive when it comes to feed time, to try and protect their feed from their horses next door. And there's one horse, for instance, and it depends on, you know, the handlers and the way they feed in stabling. So, for instance, one horse that I have here, he's a really good example of an aggressive horse at feed time. Now, I rode him track work. I knew the trainer really well. I would help, you know, go and have a coffee afterwards and that. And I've Mac, he's a big 17 one-hand horse. Now, he's full on. And when he was being fed in training, and this can happen a bit, he would lay his ears back. So the trainer would go and put the feed in first, and then the Mac would get very anticipating of his feed. So then the trainer, who was an older gentleman, would lead him in and quickly turn him around and like run out, because this horse would just, Mac just went off, pig rooting, rearing, ears back, threatening. So he learnt that if he puts his ears back, kicks out, everyone's out of the stable, and he's got his feed to himself. So that was a learnt behaviour. When I took him off the track, and he was in a paddock situation, and I fed him. So he came to, before he came out in the herd of horses here, he came into with a paddock with just another mare. And I remember one day he would get aggressive, but I would, you know, just be very wary. But when I put the feed in, so I fed Mac, and then I'd go and feed Jasmine. So I always fed Mac first because he was more of the domineering force. And I remember putting the feed in, the next minute he's turned around and literally his ears were flat back on his head, and he went to literally latch onto my face. I mean, that's how aggressive he was at feed time. Now that was scary, and I always think with that, if he'd been rehomed to a novice person, he would have taken their face off. They would have had a massive problem with feed aggression with this horse. So to answer your question, so I get a little bit on a tangent, it is common in off-the-track thoroughbreds. So it's a new behaviour where he runs around the paddock like a wally, as if I'm walking over with his dinner. He also charges towards me and has kicked out a couple of times. So one, it is common, and two, so he has 24 access to grass and a morning feed. I'd go back to the question where I'm answering what I mentioned to Sue. Is the grass really lush and green? Because he also may not be getting his, I'm just turning my, it's even cool here. I had my little heater on here, turn it on and off. If it's a very lush green grass, he may not be getting the fiber content that he needs, and therefore he's anticipating his feed. He's not satisfied because this lush green grass that we have at the moment is very high in water and very low. It's low in your sort of fiber that they need. So he may not be feeling very happy in his gut. He also could be, you know, is it, if the lush green grass, is it high in sugar? This behavior could be happening because he's getting a very high starch content, which affects their behavior. It can send them a little bit loopy, very highly. The sugar basically is like a kid on sugar. It can affect them behavior wise. So I would also question whether the grass is it very lush and green, and if it is, he's not getting a satisfactory amount of your fiber, and so he's hungry even though he's got all this access to the lush green grass. And two, is it affecting his behavior? Is it high in sugar? Because I know I was speaking to one of my haymen only last week, and he said some of the grasses that he's seen, the starch content, so your non-structural carbohydrates, which is your sugars and your starches in this green grass, can be up to 30%. Now that's a crazy high level of starch and way too much for horses. So he could be reacting to the very high sugar and starch content in the grass, which is affecting his behavior. And also too, he's not getting the satisfactory fiber content. So he's he's hungry. And then that's going to go also cause, because he's not getting the satisfactory fiber content from the grass, it's going to affect, he could be creating some ulcers in his system and things like that, in his digestive system, his stomach. So that's addressing the feed. So that's some of the causes that it could be, other than but you said he's only started it, so I'd be looking at what you've changed. If he's only started it, why wasn't he doing it before? Have you changed a routine around? So in a situation like this, when I've got horses that are really, getting quite aggressive and they kick out and that, now they're just being horses, okay? It's what they're going to do in a natural herd situation. They're defending their feed. They're pushing other horses away. As I said, in the racing environment, they're sort of forced to have their stable mates. So whereas in a herd environment, other horses wouldn't naturally go near them, because that horse is, more dominant, or they have their space. In the racing environment, they don't have the opportunity to have their space around their feed, so they'll show aggression instead. So a couple of the ways that you would go around, other than addressing, maybe giving him access to a very stalky, more fight, like a hay bag or something in his paddock, so that he can go and eat the hay. For example, with my horses, I've got so much lush green grass. They'll want to go to the teff hay or the Rhodes hay or something like that, instead of the grass, because they want that fiber. So giving the option, other than his 24/7 grass, to have some really good fibrous hay, such as your Rhodes, something like that, maybe a little bit of lucerne, but preferably your Rhodes hay. Or Rhodes hay is a great type of hay to feed, something low in sugar, because your grass is going to be quite high in sugar. Let me know where you are, whereabouts you're in Australia, Rebecca. I'm pretty sure you're in Australia. Let me know if you're not, just what type of grass that he has as well. Another thing is, if you're walking over to the paddock and giving it to him, maybe this is what I find works really well, is putting their feed out. So maybe taking him out of the paddock, having him tied up in a little area, going and putting his feet in the paddock, and then leading him back in, and making so asking him to stand, like your stop and go, which I do in your Equitation Science in-hand training principles, where you start. So this is what I find is really effective. So taking them in, already have their feet in the paddock or wherever you feed them, and then lead them back in, turn them around, have them sort of stand near their feet, or stand not too far away, face them, let them stand and relax, and then let them go and go to their feed. So don't allow them just to, as soon as you just have them stand relaxing first, and then undo the head collar and let them go to their feed. Or have them in front of their feed and just give them a pat, and as soon as they stand nice and still in front of their feed, then undo their head collar and walk away. So I find that really helpful. Hey Rebecca, so I've just got your comments here. Yes, his grass is lush and green. I give him 1 kilogram of Johnson's alfalfa 2 times daily and a biscuit of hay. I give him hay in the afternoon, but we'll swap it to morning for him. His paddock on his own at the moment due to an injury, but we'll be going in share paddock soon. Yeah, I've put him on a different property as he kept injuring himself, and switched his food over also. Oh, Mandalong, New South Wales. Okay. Where's Mandalong? Is that down south? Is it up north? I know it. I should know it, don't I? So you've changed. So it's interesting. You've changed his behaviour. So something in the change of his behaviour is triggering whatever he's doing. So was he in a shared paddock before, Rebecca? So was he in a shared paddock before when you were feeding him, or have you always fed him just on his own? So I'd be I lived up near the Central Coast. I lived up at Wyong. I was up there for 10 years. Yeah, the grass is really green up there. I mean, it's green everywhere. It's green down here. So, and was he by himself? Or was he paddocked with another horse? So now that he's getting aggressive, and he's by himself, so something's triggered his behavior. I mean, it most likely, yes, shared paddock before, but fed him on his own due to one of the horses having food aggression. So I'd say if you fed him on his own, did you bring him in and feed him, and then put him back out? Because that's usually always helps, and that's what I do with my horses. I either bring them in and feed them and then put them back out, or I put their feed in their paddock, bring them in, put their feed in their paddock or their yard or wherever they are, and then let them back out, make them, I have them stand there nice and relaxed before I let them go. So that will change if you do that and go back to the similar situation that you were doing before. You'll find that he should settle down. It's just a bit of so I think the best way to do is to bring him out and either put his feet in and then take him back in and do his standing, like you stop him going, tying him up before feeding him now. So something like that, that's really good. So tie him up and just do a little bit of your stop and go in hand. So put his feet there, or tie him up and just do a little bit of stop and go, then go while he's tied up, go and put his feet in and then stand there with him again. Ask him to stand relaxed before you let him go, and you'll find that'll help a lot. Also too, the grass may not be giving him as much fiber as he needs, and it could be just affecting him. If you change paddocks, the level of sugars may be a little bit different in this paddock. Is it is there more grass in this paddock than he had in the paddock beforehand? There's always a few different things, and you'll find too, once you do a lot more in-hand work with him and start educating him, he will settle down. It's amazing. Just retraining them with your basic responses changes so much other behavior. So I know you haven't had him that long. Once he gets a lot more educated, you'll find these types of behaviors will settle down too. My educated horses, they just don't get aggressive putting their feet out. Unless they're in a herd situation, and I've got them all together and then they put their feet out, but they don't get aggressive at me. So one, he's a green horse, and two, you've changed a situation. But I would be tying him up or bringing him out and then leading him back in, or even tying him up, taking him out of the paddock and tying him up, taking his feet in, and then taking him back in and letting him just sort of stand there, and then let him walk to his feed, or stand him in front of his feed. And if he goes to be reefy or aggressive, just ask him to take a step back and give him a nice stroke on the face so he does the right thing. So reward him for the calm behavior, and then he'll learn that if he's calm, he then gets to eat. You let him go and you allow him to eat. Not that you're restricting his food, but you want to reward good behavior. With the so you give him the Johnson's alfalfa 2 times daily and a biscuit of hay. So what type of hay do you give him? With his alfalfa. So you might want to, another thing is to maybe just have a hay bag, slow feed a hay bag of, okay, so the grass is definitely more lush than his previous paddock. Yeah, look, I say you've probably got lucerne. Okay, so I'd replace, so lucerne's really important. The thing is, because the grass is so lush at the moment, and this is, I'm having a huge problem with my horses. The grass is so lush, and I notice they're really craving that sort of fibrous hay. Lucerne being such a green hay as well, you've got, and now this is like a science in itself, going down into the photo, the greenness of the lucerne and the greenness of the grass. You want to get more of a brown type of grass, not a grassy hay that is high in sugars, not your ryegrass or anything like that. But if you can find, so give him the lucerne, because the lucerne's really important for calcium. But I would also probably have like 24/7, if you can get some Rhodes hay or even Teff hay or something, just have it in the paddock so he has the option to have a chew on a more of a fibrous type of hay, because the lush grass is so it has such a high water content. It's not giving the fiber that they need. So giving him the option to be able to have a Rhodes hay, or Rhodes hay is great. I haven't been able to get Rhodes hay at the moment, so I'm feeding teff. If you can get a tested teff, but if you can get any tested hay, it's really important. You know, I'm not saying important, but it's much better because you know the starch content. It's supposedly low. Rhodes hay is always, as far as I know, always very low in any starch content. Teff is supposed to be. But I would give him his lucerne as you're doing, but add just some type of Rhodes or teff hay in the paddock so that he has the option to eat that as well. And then also too, because he always has the option to have a feed there, he may start to lose that aggression just because he's always got the option to go and eat. I think the lush grass isn't giving him the fiber content that he needs, so he's anticipating the feed when you take it in. And also too, he may be changing his behaviour a bit because the lush grass is going to be high in sugar and starch, and that affects their behaviour. It tends to send them a little bit hyper, you know, like sugar in kids. The sugar definitely affects their behavior, and it's also going to maybe show he may be getting a little bit more aggressive because his temperament's been changed from the high sugar content in feeds. It may be also to the microbiome, you know, the balance of their good and bad bacteria in his gut maybe changed a bit. So how are his droppings? Are his droppings a little bit looser at the moment? They may be because of the lush green grass, so that sort of upset their stomach a little bit, and that could affect them. Horses are so sensitive to feed changes. So yeah, look, I'd try those. Does that help, Rebecca? Does that make start thinking you started doing stop and go response? Yeah, awesome. Yeah, stop and go is great. I've got a heap more videos coming up, and I've got my monthly well, you've got the training, but I've got a monthly training sort of training process coming out with Ty as well at the moment. That's going to be launched at the moment, so that's really exciting, and I think you'll find that really valuable, because I'm going to take the process of Ty from start to finish. So yeah, the videos take me ages to do because I'm a bit technically challenged, so I've got a heap of videos coming out. I've just got to put the time aside to upload them and do all the editing that you need to do with them. Yes, of course. Okay, so I've got a horse on antibiotics as well. So the antibiotics upset the stomach. Now I'd say, has he been on bute as well? Now the bute, it can really cause havoc with their gut. So I read an article recently, and this is something that I didn't know. I always knew that anti-inflammatories like bute supposedly cause ulcers in horses, but I found a study done recently that horses that were on bute for 7 days, and they did a controlled group placebo that weren't on bute. The horses that were on bute for 7 days literally had pyloric ulcers. They got ulcers within 7 days of being on bute. Nothing else changed, and I was like, whoa, I didn't know that. Now your pyloric ulcers are your glandular ulcers that are way down in the bottom part of the stomach, usually the protected area where the mucosa is lining the stomach, and they're very painful. So if he's on antibiotics and he's also been on bute, I'd be looking at okay, so he's on bute, so a lot's happening with him. I'd say his stomach, he's very likely got ulcers. Have you had him scoped for ulcers yet? He's been off it now for a few weeks, yeah. So I'd be looking at I'd be looking at some stage getting him scoped for ulcers, because you're never going to know without having them scoped. But the antibiotics and the bute does cause havoc in their stomach. So yeah, so at some stage, and it's really hard to get them scoped, I know, because you've got to find, they only do it a few times a year. But at some stage, I would highly recommend getting him scoped for ulcers. In the meantime, I'd give him I'd put the fiber in his paddock, so give him access, 24 access to some Rhodes hay, or Tefe or something like that, preferably Rhodes. Get him on a gastroaid recovery is really good. So Colado gastroaid recovery is really good. So I'd get him on a course of gastroaid recovery. And also too, I'm trialing at the moment aloe vera, which is a lot more economical than gastroaid recovery. I love gastroaid recovery. It's got some, I have some ulcer buff. I could give him also. Ulcer buff. Don't know what ulcer buff is. Who does that? There's a lot of products out there that don't really work. I know gastroaid recovery, they've done so many trials on it. And Dr. Ben Sykes has been part of making it. I've spoken to Colado myself, and I'm in the groups for the ulcer groups and that, so I know gastroaid recovery is really good. It's quite expensive. Yeah, what is ulcer buff? If you can let me know what it is, I'll have a look at that one. I can highly recommend gastroaid recovery Equitech. Okay, I'll have a look at that. I'll write it down. Why's my pen not working? Stance Equitech. Yeah, so I'd be giving him the Adlib fiber hay, get him on a gastroaid recovery, and I'll let you know, aloe vera, this aloe vera that I'm trying has actually proven in trials to heal ulcers. I've got one of my horses that has got pyloric ulcers. I've got him on it at the moment, so it'll be interesting how he scopes when I have him re-scoped. But at the moment I'd recommend the gastroaid recovery and give him a course of that and see how he goes, and then we can look at the aloe vera, or depending on how how he responds to the gastroaid recovery. I'll have a look at the Stance Equitech and see what's in it for you. In the meantime, yeah, tying him up or bringing him in is a great way to go. Give him the Adlib fibrous hay. The antibiotics and the butes definitely upset his gut. Have a look at his manure. Is it a little bit soft and runny? Because that's a sign that their hind gut is imbalanced. So yeah, just trying to keep an eye on that. Make sure his manure, see if you can get it back to more of a firmer, healthy type of dropping, and then the loose ones. I mean, I've got issues with my horses being a little bit loose. So yeah, let me get back to you on the ulcer buff. My dogs are going to bark. Cool. Okay, does that help, Rebecca? Let me know how you go, and I'll get back to you with the Equitech. I'll pop it in the comments here underneath this live. I'll look up that today for you. Yeah, cool. Okay. So much with horses. So much to learn. And the pasture too, the spring pasture, also too is behaviour. If you see him very bouncy, there's another thing as well. Mycotoxins. Mycotoxins in pasture can cause havoc as well. So it might be something to get him on a mycotoxin binder. Probably wouldn't, maybe just not worry about that just at the moment, but something to think about if he's on pasture 24/7. Very good product, and I can put a link in the group, is Elitox. Also Belinda's BAM Minerals is very good for horses that are on pasture, because pasture just causes so much havoc in horses. I had a massive issue with it all last year, through spring and summer, and experiences that I had no idea. It was a big learning curve for me. So, but at the moment, yeah, follow that. You're welcome. So happy I can help. Let me know how you go with that, and I'll get back to you today with the Equitech. And also I put a link in there for you with Colado Gastroaid Recovery. It's an excellent product, and heaps of research on it. And I'm not sponsored by it or anything. I just like to share things. I mean, one day maybe they can sponsor me. But yeah, I've used it on my horses myself, and have found it's helped tremendously. And I'll keep you up to date with the aloe vera. Very interested to see how the aloe vera goes. Okay, so I might leave it there. And once again, very warm welcome to all our members in the group. I do my weekly Q&A every week, change the days sometimes if need to, but yeah, just to let you know that if you have any questions. And also too, just feel free to pop posts up and questions in the group anytime. This group is for you guys. You don't need to wait for the weekly Q&A. You can just pop a question up anytime or just share your successes or your struggles. And just wanted to let you know I've also got some really good trainings coming up in the new year. I've got some training coming up at the end of this week. Lots of wonderful plans for 2022. Very excited. I've been filming the process of my one Off The Track Thoroughbred infantry training and started on my other ones as well. So going to be a heap of training videos coming up for you guys. Once again, feel free to ask questions anytime. That's what the group is here for. And have a lovely day or evening wherever you are in the world, and I'll see you in the group. Okay, bye.